We're live. I think we're live. There we go. We didn't quite get the countdown there, but anyways, we're live again. It's Backers Live. This is round 2 for me today. Justin Fox. I am joined by our newest issuer on the Backers platform, Brenda Jackson. Brenda, thank you very much for joining me today on the Backers Live show. Is it delayed for you, or can you hear me?
I'm getting double feed right now. Yeah, it's delayed and I'm getting double feed.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
So let me just get rid of this. Okay, try again.
Well, can you hear me now? Let's welcome
good.
Brenda. Perfect. All right. Awesome. Well, welcome Brenda to the show. Can you see yourself on camera there?
Yep. Not too scary yet.
No, not too scary. All right. Awesome. Well, welcome. So for those of you that don't know, Brenda is one of the newest issuers, issuing shares, raising capital, if you will, selling their shares to the community on the Backers platform. So right now, Brenda is the founder and CEO of Vertibles Inc. So Brenda, why don't you tell us a little bit about, just very quickly, what you're looking to accomplish, how much you're looking to raise, and sort of what Vertibles is, I guess, in maybe like a quick intro.
Hi, thanks very much, Justin, for inviting me on today. Right now, Vertibles is in the pioneer stage of cultivating sustainable mushrooms and manufacturing another protein source. So we're looking to raise around $100,000 to improve what we're doing now and reach our goals to expand.
Okay, cool. And then that 100,000 is obviously part of, or the first step in probably raising, close to $1 million, $1.5 million over the next 12 to 18 months to kind of accomplish your overall goals. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, where you come from, in the sense of, obviously being a farmer, having that experience. Tell us a little bit about your journey, right? I mean, there's entrepreneurs walking. They want to hear what your story is.
I've spent a lot of time farming, basically since I was born. Right now, I've got 59 years into it, and I've got a lot of practical experience in large livestock manufacturing. Done it in London, Ontario, before I moved out to British Columbia, and I moved out to British Columbia to do more organic farming than what I was used to in the animal industry. And it led us to working with another protein source, which is mushrooms, quite similar to meat, and it's got a lot more benefits than meat in most cases, being zero waste for our environment and easy to produce. My journey started when we got here. It was a new landscape, new world. British Columbia is absolutely beautiful. The climate's incredible here. And the prospect now, because of coming out of the fires that we've just seen, it's allowing us to have 43 million acres of substrate that was never available before. So we're going to be helping the environment with the cleanup, as well as producing sustainable food for our local communities. And we're really looking forward to community involvement in this project.
Okay. So that's it's interesting. So it's kind of, you've come almost full circle a little bit, right? So if you will, right? Obviously, you're in northern BC. You've experienced a lot of, I won't say hardships, but maybe hardships. A lot of things have happened over the past even just few months, with the forest fires and things like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about sort of the why mushrooms? Like why have you chosen mushrooms, and delve into a little bit about, the value that mushrooms bring, and maybe your thoughts on where you see Vertibles going within the community.
Why I chose mushrooms was livestock is a lot different work than working with mushrooms. Mushrooms you can put to bed at 5 o'clock and not worry about them till 9 o'clock the next morning. Livestock is a 24/7 job. I did that for 35 years with 2,500 sows. It was a lot of work and no time off. I want to have a bit more freedom in my life to do this project and develop a source of protein that is renewable easily anywhere we can set this project up and provide protein sources to the local communities, have community involvement to do it. We like the idea of mushrooms. They're clean, they're non-GMO'd, and they're a stable stable environment. So you're growing them indoors where you're not going to be facing any weather changes, dealing with smoke and lack of sunlight, water issues. Everything in the mushroom that you do is 100% zero waste. There is absolutely no waste allowed in it. From freeze drying to the substrate is all renewable resources. And that's what I liked about it, that we could have a schedule, uh, do things on an orderly fashion where you're not at the demand of the animal. The mushrooms have a bit more flexibility, and they're very interesting how they are a complete, almost complete food source for our bodies. And we've seen with the supply chains having interruptions, we're seeing interruptions in people being able to get food at different times or afford it. And we want to be able to supply a protein source to feed the communities and at least help them obtain protein sources when they can't afford it.
Right. So sort of food shortages, food scarcity, supply chain issues. Mushrooms are arguably what would be
Renewable
the
resource.
uh, right, and it's sort of a power food, or what would that sort of, I don't know the
Yeah,
term, sort
power
of like
food.
a
Yeah.
power food. Is that the term? Yeah.
We call it
So
superfood because
superfood. That's, I guess, yeah.
it has all the amino acids and vitamins, and if you add a specific light to that when you're processing, you can increase the vitamin D 9 times, which in the northern hemisphere is super important. We're not nearly getting enough vitamin D, and that's really not an added cost to doing it. And it's important that we add natural products to our diet because we are organic substances and we digest better when it's an organic food substance.
Right. No, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about, obviously mushrooms are a superfood. As we said, you have experience in the farming space, 30 plus years. Plus, I mean, it's a family thing, like a legacy type thing where it's, you grew up as a farmer as well, right back in Ontario. Now you're out in BC. So definitely there's a legacy aspect to it. So you're currently raising on the Backers platform. So we'll just pull up the offering there, as people can see, currently raising, and you've got the offering there, and you can sort of see the terms of the deal. Currently at a 15 cents per share. They're Class B non-voting shares, so they're investing in the Vertibles Inc. business. So let's talk a little bit about Vertibles, sort of maybe the etymology of the name, what it means, how, I mean, we kind of co-opted and created the name together, but and what that means and how you foresee you being able to grow mushrooms in a viable, sustainable, cost-effective way, obviously, to produce volumes, as you said, in a northern hemisphere, arguably northern BC or central BC, I guess. Would you be
We're,
considered more
we're southern
cent?
BC.
Okay.
We're
I guess
southern
BC
BC.
is quite
It's
compared to
vast.
Vancouver. Yes, it's slightly north of Vancouver, Kamloops area. You're in the sort of Kamloops area, right?
We're in the northern rainforest out here, so we're in an
Right.
area that's pristine water, very little pollution. Uh, the climate's pretty well controlled in a microclimate by the lake.
Mm-hmm.
The valuable part of this is that we're looking at automation. We know there's a shortage of good skilled labor out there, and people should be doing more important things than picking mushrooms. So we're designing robotics to be able to pick the mushrooms and get the best quality out of the production that we can using the robotics. So it's timed, it's quality, it's consistent, and you need to be able to supply your market consistent food products. You can't 1 week have a bumper crop and the next week have a dismal crop. You have to be consistent. So the robotic part of it, there's some local companies we're looking at working with to create these robotics. It's not to take jobs away, it's to change how we work and work smarter. So let the
Right.
mushrooms do the work and let us do enjoy the product that we have. And by doing that, it will make it more cost effective to sell these products because of the fact that we're producing them without a huge overhead.
Right. So Canadian grown, obviously, I mean, if you go to the shelves today, and there's specific types of mushrooms that you're looking at producing as well, not sort of the portobello or button type
Right.
mushrooms, but other mushrooms. Do you want to touch on those a little bit?
Yeah, we're looking at growing the oyster mushrooms for the fact that they are one of the easiest and best prolific mushrooms to grow. They are beautiful to work with. They have a very long shelf life. We're looking at taking everything for zero waste. If we don't sell in the fresh market, We're looking at selling in the freeze-dried market, which gives it a 25-year life, shelf life, and that would be zero waste as well. There'd be any part of the plant will be reused and recycled. Even the water coming from the freeze dryers will be reusable and resourced again. The substrate can be used in many ways. There is nothing that is not recyclable in what we do. So when we go to a larger robotics, it's just going to be more effective, more efficient, and less waste.
Right. So when you say what are the other things around this? And we've discussed it as sort of the year-round access, right? And the fact that you've got the automation, but also year-round access. So why don't you talk a little bit about the facilities? A greenhouse style facility, vertically grown. So obviously the volumes. You don't have to have acres and acres of greenhouses.
Right.
You can have a few facilities and you can still grow the same kind of volumes. Do you want to sort of talk on those two aspects and the year-round cultivation aspect as well?
I spent 2.5 years researching and developing what we're doing. I did it on a micro scale just to make sure that the process is going to work. When we grow vertically, we're taking up a lot less space than growing horizontally. When we're growing inside of a greenhouse, we're going to be doing medicinal mushrooms at that point. It takes about 2 years to grow one of these mushrooms. So the indoor mushrooms, which will be the oyster and various other varieties that we can grow, in a controlled environment, you control everything. So you have no disease, no pests, and a consistent product. Right now, we're seeing most of our oyster mushrooms coming from offshore. And we know that we've seen supply chain interruptions. Just the other day at the grocery store, the shelves were empty. I was absolutely shocked that we had empty shelves in Canada. And we know that with the fires, people have gotten rid of their livestock because they can't get hay. We know that with the lack of rain that we've had, it's been difficult. So we have got to have some sort of supply chain that can produce the proteins. And one of the valuable points is that within a 10, 11-day process, I can scale up 100% or scale down 100%. It's not a very long turnover in the facility. And being in a controlled environment, I mean, it's much easier on the workers too. It doesn't matter if it rains or snows, you get the same product. And they're very easy to maintain once you've got the proper dialed in technology.
Right. So what, just, I mean, out of my own curiosity, I think you've mentioned this maybe way back when we first started talking, but how many cycles or how many, I guess, crops or what would you say, like harvests can you get, let's say, in a year?
Well, we're only looking at using 1/4 of our building, and with the technology that I've got proprietary, we can do 90,000 pounds in 1/4 of this building at 33%.
Okay, and that's so it's just ongoing. It's not so
It's
much
continuous.
like it's just continuous, right? Okay, so
It's
it's not so
continuous.
much like there's harvests each
day.
day
Each
or
day.
it's each day, exactly. So
Each
it's an
day.
ongoing, fully continuous, potentially autonomous. With some of the robotics production of a mass amounts. You said 90 kilograms, was it?
90,000 pounds.
90,000 pounds. So,
Yeah.
so for perspective, like what would that supply look like? What would the cost of that maybe be, or the value of that in the open market? And I mean, just roughly, like give sort of a rough idea, or maybe some, if we don't want to get too specific on that side of things, what would be maybe like annual projections for the business in year 1, in year 2, in year 3?
In year 1, we're looking at, with full production and having the markets to sustain it, we're looking at about $1 million to do
revenue.
that. Yeah, in revenue, which would mean that we would be taking away the import markets and be selling it at a more competitive price for the local people to be able to afford. Right now, we're seeing in Vancouver, I have a friend out there, and she does a lot of grocery shopping. And she was showing me the product. Some of it's incredible, but the time that it takes to get growing and then across the ocean to here makes the product quite old before you get it. And you don't know if you're actually getting it and how it's grown. What we do know in Canada, that we are under stringent rules how we grow and do things. So it's pretty important to follow that, to be able to have those markets. And there's a huge market of people that don't know about mushrooms. More Europeans know that they've used it for food, especially through the wars when you didn't have meat available, that you were supplementing your diet and continuing your health status without having any depletions.
Right. It's interesting. We sort of joked about this, about the alternative sources of protein. A lot of people talk about bugs, right? Or
Your
other
favorite
vegetables.
topic.
Yeah, not exactly, right? The whole bug teen concept, right? And I know some people probably watching, London has a big facility out there, and that's
Yes.
kind of, a lot of people think that's the direction, but mushrooms are definitely a far, in my opinion, far better option. Obviously, can be quite, I guess, can be replenished, or it's the access will be there, right, a lot more readily than bugs, I would think.
Well, big
Or
difference in
other
mushrooms.
sources.
Big
Yeah.
difference in mushrooms and bugs. With bugs, you've got to be super careful that people aren't going to have a shellfish reaction to it.
Right.
They've got some different levels of vitamins and stuff, but at the same time frame, the only way that I'm going to eat a bug if it accidentally flies in my mouth and I can't spit it out, I
Right.
won't be putting that in my body.
You and me both. You and me
We're
both.
really not designed to be eating that source. It's a shellfish,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
not good for everybody. But I understand the reason why they're doing it and the need for it. But I think that if we can't supply our food chains with the ordinary protein sources, beef, chicken, pork, whatever, because of the access to that product, we're going to see the need for other products. And if people want to eat bugs, you're welcome to it. But a lot of us don't want to eat bugs, and
Right.
those facilities are popping up all across Canada. We're not talking little facilities; we're talking 100 million.
Massive. Oh yeah.
Massive facilities.
Yeah. There's one, as I
And
said, outside of London, Ontario, sort of where
I came
were
from. Yeah,
exactly, that area, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's incredible. They've been doing it since about 2013. I've looked into it,
Yeah.
and they seem to have the support of the government, which is kind of surprising because as we're out here in BC watching our water get turned off for farmers, but yet we're allowing this kind of foreign investment into our country, and we won't support our Canadian people. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
So that's probably something we should have a whole episode dedicated around that side of the government support in local farming and local businesses. But let's get back to sort of, obviously mushrooms is a sustainable, nutritious superfood. You're going to be able to grow it in significant volumes, right?
Yes.
Producing, at a very cost-effective way, which you'll be able to get it out into the market. So again, reducing the supply chain issues, maybe with other mushrooms specifically coming from outside of Canada, right? Being imported in. So that's huge. Where do you see the volumes kind of going? I mean, throw some numbers out there in Canada, North America, globally, the trajectory of mushrooms, and kind of where do you see that year 2 and 3 for Vertibles? Like what are we looking at and can expect?
Well, it's an untapped market. We know that it's not popular because people don't really have an education on it, which is fine. That's what we intend to do. But
Right.
it's astronomically growing as a superfood right now. Like we said, other countries are way ahead of us on doing that. We've got button and cremini, which are growing quite a bit different than what we're doing now. There's nothing wrong with either one of those mushrooms, but when we look at the specialty mushrooms, they have different proteins and different aspects of them that's not readily available in those other mushrooms. So as we grow through this cycle, really we have no commercial producers that I've seen of the oyster mushrooms. One in Ontario, but it's not a huge huge business yet. It's just going to grow because if you add, for example, mushroom powder to, let's say, your hamburger mix or mushroom pieces, you can reduce the calories from 1,200 down to 400 by adding that. And you're getting your amino acids, your vitamins. You're doing a lot more good for your body than just eating a meat source.
Right, and still getting the protein as well, right? So
you're getting your protein as well,
and
it's good for your digestion as well. There's so much out there to go learn about what the mushrooms actually do for our bodies and how it helps our bodies. There's a lot of benefits that people are just not even aware of yet.
And we don't have to put names necessarily, but I know in one of our conversations you mentioned you had spoken to a large fast food sort of burger chain in the US, Canada, I don't know, forget whether it was both, and approached them, or they approached you about potentially utilizing what you just mentioned, right? And providing maybe an alternative or kind of like a dual beef slash mushroom type of burger, right? Is that, yeah, you
Yes.
don't have to say
Yes.
names, but
No.
if you don't want to, but yeah.
No, cost of production for them would just decrease incredibly because you're
Yeah.
putting a filler in that you can make mushrooms when you cook it look like meat.
Right.
Exactly like meat. And people wouldn't know the difference. They just wouldn't. They just would have less calories, and that beef or pork or chicken would just go a lot further than people realize. You're stretching
Right.
your budgets.
So I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, this is where, we, even with some of the people in our internal team, sort of trying to understand, what are the use cases and what are the avenues, or how can this, turn into, a significant business. There's so many opportunities out there. It's kind of endless, right? That's sort of, the freeze dried. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the freeze dried aspect, the shelf life, those types of things?
Oh, the freeze dry is super, super exciting. It's a huge expense, this machine. It's very difficult to get them in North America that aren't overly priced. But on the fact of when you put these mushrooms, so first of all, they freeze the mushrooms, you put it in the freeze dryer, and then it takes the water off as a vapor. And that vapor is recyclable, that water. But it doesn't lose hardly any of the significant value. So you're also shipping, instead of 90,000 pounds of mushrooms, you're shipping 80% less weight. And then it reconstitutes to these same values. So people have to get a little bit educated that when you see a small package, let's say 1 pound dried mushrooms would be probably quarter pound in reference. And then you add the equivalent amount of water to it. So we're actually able to ship fresh product, which is freeze dried, because it's the same as fresh, to reconstitute it anywhere. Anywhere in the world we can do this, which makes it convenient for people that are hiking or camping or food trailers or any of these places. They have the ability to have, even though it's freeze dried, it's got the same quality as fresh.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I remember as a kid, the ration, the little ration packs, the little, I think that they call them M somethings, I don't know, that the soldiers use, or I was in cadets, but yeah, where you add a little water and all of a sudden it reconstitutes, as you just said. So, well, Brenda, we'll just quickly jump into sort of some of the numbers. You're going to show the investment opportunity again on the screen. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you're raising, what people are getting as an investment. You're going to pitch to the crowd tomorrow on the Crowd Powered by Backers show and go through this whole deck. So you don't need to necessarily do that, but why don't you just tell us a little bit about you're raising capital on Backers. Tell us a little bit about what it is you're raising, maybe some of the use of funds, and if you can see the screen there as well.
I just got to pull my screen up. Give me 1 second to pull it up. I just have to turn you down for a second. Right. I've got 10,000 windows open, so I get down to just one. Okay, how am I there for picture now? I can't.
Yeah. No, there you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Still there.
So what we're looking at doing is we want to give back to the community. And in doing this, we're grateful that people want to invest and stick around with us to see this grow at the ground level, because it is an untapped market. So what we're looking at, if you want to put $100 in, we're going to make it worth your while sticking around with us to stay on the program here, so that we can have long-term community involvement. It's the only way I think that we can grow these days. If you don't have the product out there to the community, how do you actually make a living doing this? How do you bring back an income if you don't have them involved? Yeah. They need to be part of our group, because that's our biggest, grassroots is our biggest advertiser. So you get the local community involved, you get them buying into it, and then we're going to be giving back to the group as we go through this. Right.
So, and right now, so you're raising 100,000 on a 3 million valuation, and you're giving away roughly 3.3% equity in the business. So for that $100,000, and that's as we discussed, part of a larger raise that will be happening over the coming months. But that's basically what's on there: the Class B non-voting shares, and they're currently 15 cents per share, right? So, and then there were some thresholds, and we can probably talk a little bit about this. Another, if you invest $500, there's sort of an added perk. If you invested, I think it was 1,000, there's another added perk. Or if you invested 2,500, there's another added perk. So there's sort of thresholds around, and different perks that they can get. Maybe some, we don't need to get into specifics right now, but some added bonuses of what they get in addition to the shares, the actual shares in the business. They're now also going to get some added perks, which means you're part of the Vertibles community, right? Whether it's discounts on some mushrooms or different things, right? So
Exactly. And giving that back to them also gives us another test market so they can be trying the product and giving us
yeah.
feedback.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole point of backers, right? Is it's not just investors. It's you become a backer, a supporter, a fan, a follower. There's a loyalty aspect to it where you're now invested in the success of the business. You get maybe some perks as a shareholder and part of that community, and at the same time, you can participate in the journey and follow along and like their products or share their message and tell other people about it, right? So there's a whole aspect there as well, right? That's
Exactly. And
kind of cool.
being Canadian and being proud to be Canadian and local.
Yeah.
We need to support our local communities. We need to keep them alive and thriving and
Yeah.
providing jobs as well. We need to do that in local, especially in our area that's been devastated by forest fires. I mean, it's pretty well killed every business here. It's not
Yeah.
funny, but it's just
No.
overwhelming. So starting up a project right now after a devastation, to me, makes the community stronger and more involved. And we need community involvement from everybody who eats. That's one of the foundation thoughts as a farmer is that we'll always be in business because we're one of the essentials of living is eating.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
enjoying your food too. People don't take enough time to enjoy their food.
Well, that's definitely the and mushrooms are definitely a great item to add to any dish. So let's we'll end on that. Well, one other question, and this is kind of I thought was interesting. You just touched on obviously the devastation of the forest fires. I mean, everyone saw the news, and you can see the smoke. All the way across the globe, pretty much. People experienced it. Definitely, a extremely devastating occurrence. But you mentioned the other day in a call, like through the fire, obviously the substrate or the what's left after the fire is also a great fertile source or to grow mushrooms on. Touch a little bit on that. Like, does that play into? And I forget in our conversation if that directly played into what you're going to do, or if it's sort of just an interesting topic of conversation.
We didn't have any idea that we'd have so much substrate available with 43 million acres destroyed.
Right.
But it's a perfect opportunity to recycle all that wood into substrate. And
Right.
It's a benefit for growing because it's got the carbon in there. And usually after forest fires, people go out and pick morel mushrooms because the soil's got an awful lot of richness in it. So that's what we're looking at, recycling that. And then after the substrate's been spent and partly recycled, then we can start putting it back on the land in areas where we're going to reforest. So it's just going to build up the quality of the forest here.
So it builds that almost you're recycling and using what arguably, out of a tragedy, if you will, devastation, there is some positive that will come out of it. And you'll be able to use that. So the substrate, for those watching that don't, like myself, hadn't heard that word before, it's basically what the mushrooms are grown on. It's arguably they use that as the soil, but it's not soil. It's grown in the sort of this mix, right? And
it's a mix. It's got some organic grain in it, but
right.
It's the wood. But you also can use that to feed livestock as well. It's edible. The mycelium roots are very, very digestible for other animals as well.
Right.
So it's a complete circle of life when you grow a mushroom. And actually, if you look in the forest, the mushrooms are recycling the dead trees already.
Right. That's naturally right. And you mentioned people pick, again, lots of conversations we have. You said people like pick thousands of pounds or whatever, and they sell them. And there's a whole market there as well, which is more of a, foraging and a one-up, but you're almost like taking that concept, if you will, and putting it in more, in a more controlled kind of environment for sure. So
you really can't play Russian roulette when you're doing this. It's just too expensive to just throw it out to caution in the weather. Right. And
well, that's also you don't know what mushrooms you're eating at that point too, that are growing wildly, right? That's
you don't, but if we are growing outdoors, like you can grow on logs and things like that, turkey tail and that, it's pretty easy to spot a little turkey tail, but some of them are a little bit, you don't know, but the genetics are important as well. There's some really super genetics in the oyster mushroom world right now that people have collected over decades. and we want to have our own mushroom genetic bank here, so that we can share with other people as well. Because at any point, anywhere, like the devastation we've seen, you can wipe out entire species. There's 5 million species of mushrooms, but so far, and counting. You know, how much has been wiped out here that we'll never know that grew out here.
Right. We'll end it on this because we could keep talking and we'll have many more episodes. You're going to be pitching tomorrow the whole sort of story and going through the investor deck. Again, you can invest on Backers, portal.backers.ca/offerings/vertibles. If you want to check it out, backers.ca as well. You can go through investors, check out the offering, invest as little as 100, as much as 2,500. So those watching, Brenda will also be part of the crowd tomorrow. The show will have a sort of a panel. She'll be pitching to them. They'll be asking some questions. But you talked a little bit about the mushroom bank, if you will, the genetic bank and the genetic code. And you mentioned there's some other people, sort of opportunities that maybe they're doing that as well. And one of the other things that I think is an interesting idea, and obviously these are all ideas that will be fleshed out over time. It's not going to happen day one. Day one is getting the initial facility up to production speed, so you can start ramping up and selling within, like you said, very quickly, within a few weeks, a month, probably within 3 months at the very least, right? So
correct. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the other concept too, and I think this is an interesting, just from an idea perspective. If you have your facility and you're able to provide the proprietary knowledge of how to do what you do, and then allow others using maybe your mushroom bank, maybe your proprietary knowledge on the vertically grown, how to build it out. You talked about injecting certain things into it, the vitamin vitamin D, sorry, lost my train of thought, right? And those types of things into it. So now somebody else, either across Canada, across North America, across the globe, can now basically use that proprietary knowledge as almost like a franchise model or a subsidiary or whatever, and can now do this, and it can expand globally, where this can be, a global type opportunity to expand and have facilities all over using the I joked on the WhatsApp the other day, Queen of Mushrooms, Brenda Jackson model. But I mean, tell us a little bit about, just maybe superficially, your thoughts on kind of where that might go.
Definitely. That's the 7 points that we want to put into place, where we want to be able to have enough money raised, not just for us, but other people doing the same thing. And we could do this in people's garages. We could do it anywhere on small scales to get them started. And just the knowledge, because most people do not know how to grow their own food. It's been lost. And I'm lucky enough to have been raised in an environment where I have that knowledge, and we need to share it, because the less of us around, there's less than 2% of the globe is farmers. And usually we are retiring at the age of 82, which I've got a few more years to go, but our knowledge is lost once we're gone. And we need to be sharing that with the younger people and making this a program so that kids can do it. Plus, if you do starter kits that you can send home with people, even in the school systems, and get them really interested in doing it. I mean, schools should have mushroom facilities right off the side of it, so that they can be self-supporting and pay for their own way and teach the kids how to do this. It starts with the kids.
Yeah, no, definitely starts with the youth for sure. And it's, I've seen, there's some, I mean, in Vancouver here, there's some, high school have sort of the growing clubs or whatever. We went to one, I think, back in the spring. But yeah, there's definitely a huge opportunity. Like you said, home sized, also institutional sized or farm sized opportunities to expand and grow and get what you're doing out to the masses, right? So as much as you can supply, there's definitely, expansion opportunities there as well globally. So
and in Canada right now, because of what we've gone through, there is a lot of substrate available to do this. It's not like we're having to go source it from another country. It's right in our own country, and the fires were globally this year, so there is a lot of opportunity globally to do this. And it's not just with wood. There's other products you can use.
Well, this interview has now turned into about 100 different things that we've touched on over the past few months as we've been talking. But the one thing you mentioned earlier is the mycelium. For people that don't know that word, just describe what is the mycelium.
The mycelium is the roots of the mushroom. Right. And currently there's other companies making bacon and different things out of the roots. You can use the roots to make all kinds of different products, living products that are, they don't have to go into the landfill. They can just go into the backyard of your garden or a flower bed or on the grass or in
Right.
fields, farmer fields, just to renew our most destroyed asset is our soil that we grow our crops on. We've depleted it so much because of the way commercial farming's gone, but we can
Right.
build it up again by using this resource.
Right. And then obviously, I mean, I mentioned, I saw that thing at one of the presentations around the spores in kind of like a biodegradable type of product. And you can create the substrate almost through this kind of reuse of, bio waste almost, right? That's kind of
Right.
the
You can
idea there.
use 3D printing to
Well,
use
that's, yeah,
to make the substrate into different
exactly.
products, which is it's an unlimited, as long as your imagination can open up to different thoughts and ideas, which you can make hats out of mycelium, you can out of mushrooms. It's incredible. You can
Right.
make leather, you can make all kinds of products that's renewable resource and recyclable. It doesn't go in landfills and sit there and not decay. It's fully decayable,
Awesome.
recyclable, reuse. So that's what we're really happy about.
Yeah, no, I mean, so even, first, every time I think the first conversation somebody has with you, they're sort of taken aback, especially if they haven't thought about, this and sort of all the opportunities there. And then sort of like, well, how do we get this? How do we get this to the masses? How do we make this happen? So, Brenda, I thank you very much for joining me on the show today, on the episode. For everyone, Brenda Jackson, Vertibles Inc., Justin Fox, backers. Brenda, any parting last words? Can we nickname you the Queen of Mushrooms? Can that stick, or what?
I don't know if I'll be queen, but I'll be something for sure.
Yeah.
But thanks. I just hope everybody wants to get on board and do this, and then let's start spreading this across our country first, and help people that are going to need it. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that just need to feed their kids, and this is one way you can feed your kids.
Yeah, no, definitely. So check it out. They are raising capital on backers on the backers.ca site. Vertibles Inc. is the company. We showed it. You'll be pitching tomorrow. You're part of the crowd. People have if you follow along and watch tomorrow, other people will have questions that maybe haven't come across some of these things, and I'm sure they'll be blown away by it as well tomorrow. So, Brenda, thanks again. Appreciate it. All right, everyone else, we'll see you again tomorrow, actually, on the crowd. There we go. And